So far, the base of any discussions which we are having is the 6 knowledge areas. And if you look into the 6 knowledge areas, you can see here like requirements. The first knowledge area is business analysis, planning and monitoring. The second one would be like elicitation and collaboration. The next one is requirements lifecycle management. And then we have the strategy analysis. And then we have requirements analysis and design definition. And we have the solution evaluation. Okay. So these are the 6 knowledge areas what a business analyst will be doing and involved in that, and each knowledge area is once again classified into like tasks. We do various tasks about it. Okay, already we covered till strategy analysis, and today we are going to discuss about requirements analysis and design definition. Okay, now what we are going to cover here in requirements analysis and design definition is, okay, now here we are going to map the project and we are going to understand the project, okay, through requirements. We are going to understand the project through requirements. For that, we have to requirements. For us, if you say requirement, we have two terms associated with the requirement, that is requirement and design. We have two terms associated. One is requirements and design, right? Got it? So hope you got that. We have two terms here. If you want to just understand it, I'll just show you here. So by the word requirement, we mean both requirements and design. Both we mean it. Okay, it is the what the requirements will be coming up and what the designs will be doing it. And for you to understand this spectrum, business analysis value spectrum. Okay, let me show you business analysis value spectrum here. I think business analysis value spectrum, if you see here, this is very important. If you can see, we will be doing strategy analysis. In strategy analysis, from the need we get the solution scope. Okay, and here the requirements analysis and design definition may what we will be handling requirements and designs. We are going to handle here requirements, that is from the need we get the requirements. From the design they're going to get the solution. From the design they're going to get the solution, and the mapping of these requirements to the design, this is what exactly we are going to now handle it. That means from the project perspective, what we are going to do here in this stage, we have to analyze these requirements which is coming from the need through the solution scope, and we have to come up with a design definition so that the solution can be actually developed there. Okay, so what we are going to do is requirements analysis, and here design definition we are going to make it up. And we have seen this like what is a requirement and what is a design, the relationship between design requirements and designs. Already we have gone through it. Got it? So this is what we are going to understand in this knowledge area. What we are going to understand in this knowledge area is a bridge between the strategy analysis and solution evaluation. Now here we are going to discuss about this requirements and design. These two are with respect to the project. Now this is with respect to the project we are going to understand here. Okay, now if you see here, what we are going to discuss is that okay, we have like 6 tasks here. Okay, these 6 tasks is specify and model requirements, and then we have to verify the requirements, we have to validate the requirements, we have to define requirements architecture and define the solution options, and we have to analyze potential value and the recommended solutions. That we have to do it. Okay, now here exactly what we are trying to do here is that we are going to now understand what the requirement is, and we are going to come up with a design pattern by which these solutions can be actually started off with. We give a kickoff for the solutions to start. Okay, so let us understand it from that perspective. Did you understand this particular diagram? This is very important. This is the BABOK. I'm referring to the BABOK and showing this. Okay, so from the need we will get a solution scope in the strategy analysis. Now we are going to get the requirements. From the need through the solution scope we are going to get the requirements, and from this requirements we are coming up with a design, and from this design we are going to build the solution. This is what exactly the flow is all about. So this is business analysis value spectrum. If you want to understand, this is business analysis value spectrum. It is fine. And we have 6 tasks. What are the 6 tasks? First of all, we specify and model requirements. Okay, when you are specifying and modeling requirements, you are going to describe the requirements and designs in detailed using analytical techniques. That means exactly what are the requirements. First of all, you describe all the set of requirements or designs, what is involved in this particular project, you define it. Then you verify the risk requirements. Verify means whether the concerning stakeholder actually want it. That internally he's like he proposes, okay, I want this. So you'll understand that the stakeholder really requires it or not. And also you have to understand these requirements are consistent and and is of high quality, and is consistent and is of high quality. We will understand it. And then we validate the requirements. Validating the requirements means you have to understand what are the requirements you have finalized here in the verify. It should be in line with the organization goals and objectives, and it delivers business value. That these requirements are in line with the organization goals and objectives, and it is in line with the business value, right? And then we have this defined requirements architecture. Okay, now architecture means these requirements will have relationship between them. These requirements will have relationship between them. Those relationship between the requirements, so we have to understand it. I can tell you what is the relationship between these requirements means. I'll give you a simple example. Let me say, in your office, if you have this attendance management system or your timesheets. Okay, now one day you're absent. Okay, one day you're absent, possibly that may be considered as leave. Second day you're absent, if at all, if you have leave, that is considered as leave. Third day, then it attracts LOP, loss of pay, right? Now from one angle, yeah, I'll tell you, like to take a leave. Okay, from one angle you have to take your project manager's approval, and the next perspective is that you have to talk to the HR as well. Now behind the scene, the accounts team will be monitoring your leaves, permissions, and your LOPs, like loss of pay, and they calculate your salary. They calculate your salary. You got me, no? So that means internally these whenever you apply a leave, internally it is linked with HR and it is linked with the accounts team as well. That is architecture. Basically that is the architecture. That means your leave has impact on many areas. One is with the project, one is with the HR, the other one is the will be the accounts team. Like that, it will have an impact on that. That is an architecture. The relationship between these requirements will be having it. Your salary component is related to your working hours or your work contributions. Let me say, you did well at your workplace, and your manager gave you an appreciation. That appreciation is linked with some money reward, a pat on back. It's like they gave you like $100 or $200 as a pat on back. Then that will reflect in your salary. That will reflect in your salary. From here, the components are related to each other. Hope you are getting that. Internally requirements architecture means all these related to each other. So how this relationship works, that is the architecture will tell us that. How this actually works out, architecture will tell us. Now it's like, if you want to understand the architecture, simply take your house architecture. Now you're in a house, we know that there are multiple rooms, many rooms will be there, but all these rooms are connected to each other to doors, and they're ventilated through windows. And for each room there is a specific functionality for that. That room is designed in such a way that functionality can be achieved there. All right, you got me? So these are like that is architecture. That means you know how to go navigate from one room to another room. Here as well, you should understand the relationship between the requirements. If you change one requirement, how it impacts the other requirement, you should understand it. That is defining the architecture. Requirements architecture means this is how you have to understand. Okay, here it is like structures all requirements and designs so that they support the overall business purpose for a change, and they work effectively as a cohesive whole. That is what exactly. Now you should understand the completeness. Whole means completeness. Okay, that we have to understand. The cohesive whole means all together it should be, it should give you the benefit of being there. Let me say you built a very beautiful home, but you haven't built any single toilet there. Now is it okay for us? Now you've gone with like a 10 rooms, you have built it very excellently, but there is no washrooms there. Then that is a missing item there. You should be knowing it, right? Or otherwise, let me say you built it without a kitchen, like that. So there will be like, you should understand like what are the important activities based on it, what is required, and we need to understand it. Let me say, if you go to an architect, you say I want a 4-bedroom house, and you say no toilets required, then he will ask you, please take please make some space for the toilets. Later on you may require it. If you don't use it, leave it, but when in times of need it is required for you, like that they'll start counseling you. And the same way, if you make it a house and you say I don't want a kitchen, your architect will not leave you. He'll say please make some space for the kitchen, it will be definitely useful. Like that he'll start giving you some advices. So architecture means completeness. We have to look into the completeness and what is the relationship between this requirements as well. We have to get into those things, right? And a defined solution options. A defined solution options means here we are going to understand by what, how many different ways are there for us to actually reach to the desired state. That will be understanding it. Okay. And analyze potential value and recommended solutions. Here we have, let me say, 4 different options. So we have seen 4 different solution options. Then for each option we have to map, identify which is better. Like we have to get into the each one, what is the value it is giving, what is the cost factor, and like what is it, like how many requirements it is going to actually collaborate with, or let me say allocation of the requirements, how much is done. So we will understand it, and finally out of these 4 we'll choose one way to go ahead with. So here this is what exactly we are going to see in the requirements analysis and design definition. This is what we are going to discuss on. Fine, got it, clear on this? Okay. Now, so here, if you look into it, let me tell you that we have how many 6 tasks are there, out of which the first one is okay, the first one is what? Specify and model. The specify and model requirements is the first task. Okay, in specify and model we have like 4 elements are there. In specify and model requirements we have 4 elements. The first one is modeling the requirements. We have to model the requirements. And the second one is we have to, after modeling, we have to analyze the requirements, and then we have to represent the requirements and the attributes of these requirements. We have to understand about the attributes of the requirements, and then we have to implement appropriate levels of abstraction. That means till what stakeholder is going to have what sort of information, we have to understand it here while we are going with the requirements. Now, specify and model requirements, if you can understand, okay, it is taking illustration results. Already we have discussed about that illustration results, that is taken as input. And the guidelines, if you see here, like modeling notations, standards, what are there, like are you drawing activity diagrams, are you drawing flow charts, or you're using use case diagrams, or you are going with a BPM, business process modeling. Like that we will be understanding the notations, what we have to use it. And modeling tools, are you using EBPMN, or you are using what we say that a Visio, or you are using like a enterprise architect, like what tools you are going to use here. And requirements architecture. Requirements architecture, already I told you, like basically for any project, basically you have a requirements base, architecture base will be there. For example, HR means HR will be doing in one area. Accounts means it will have one proper structure. Any accounts you take, we have like expense, income, expenses, like that. So that is a basic fundamental of, you can't change it, right? It goes, we have income, we have expenses, and you can classify income into multiple modes, you can classify expenses into multiple modes. But basically you say accounts and you say I don't have any income, I only have expenses, then that is not correct. In that way architecture will be there, right? And then we have to understand about that requirements lifecycle management tools, like already we have discussed that, those inputs we are going to consider here. And the solution scope. Now if you understand the solution scope from the strategy analysis, we're getting the solution scope, like how, what we are going to give them. If the scope is free, then based on it we are taking these guidelines, and we are going to specify and model the requirements, and finally the output would be the requirements modeled. We model the requirements here. Okay, now for you to understand, already we have seen what is the requirement and what is the design. We need to understand the relationship between the requirements and design. And after that, okay, so inputs, we are taking illustration results from any state that we are going to consider. And here what we are trying to do is that let us try to understand the okay elements of it. The first one is modeling the requirements. How we are going to model the requirements? Models, actually these are diagrams. Model means mostly these are diagrams, and these are like when you look into the diagram, you will get a diagram or a picture. It model means it's a diagram or a picture. It is like more like a descriptor, and it is visual. You can easily understand what it is. and it provides a support for your analysis and communication and understanding. That means it gives a clear cut picture rather than descript. Like if you have a text like 4 or 5 paragraphs, it becomes difficult for us to read text and understand it. Rather than if you have a simple diagram, your mind map would be very clear about it, and then if you read the text, it becomes easy for you to understand. So mostly we tend to follow diagrams, we tend to follow the models, we tend to understand through pictorial representations. So here we get into the pictorial representations of the requirements here. Okay, so if you get it, definitely what happens is that any gaps are there, we are going to identify it and we can cover them. So that is what we can do through these models. And modeling formats, if you see, number one, we can we can come up with matrices, and number two, we can go with diagrams as well. Matrices means this is a matrix, this format requirements designs, this is a matrix format. And if you go through this, diagrams means already I've seen that process flow diagrams, activity diagrams, business flow, business process models, all these are diagrams like that. Those are diagrams. You got me? The variation. So either we can express models through matrices, or we can express through the models through diagrams as well, right? And we model categories, like when we are modeling this model categories, when we are doing this, when you are doing a model, then we have to consider people and their roles. We have to consider the reasons why we have started this, the rationale, and the activity flow, capability, data and information. All these parameters will be considered, and we will be coming up with the model. Okay, and next, after modeling the requirements, so what we try to do is we are going to analyze those requirements. We are going to analyze those requirements. Now, analyzing the requirements means once you go through one requirement, we have to decompose it into multiple pieces to understand and to address it. We have to analyze it. Okay. Now, analyzing is that we have to understand these changes to meet the business needs, and like what should stay the same to meet the business needs, and what is missing to meet the business needs, what is unnecessarily and supervised, like superfluous to meet the business needs, constraints and assumptions that impact the business needs. Now, in here, analyze requirements is something like your use case spec. It's something like your use case spec. You'll start understanding from multiple dimensions. You start understanding from multiple dimensions here, but here always you have to keep in mind your business needs. Your business needs and objectives you have to keep in mind and try to map it. Whether this requirement is in line with that business need or not, we have to understand it, and we have to decompose it into multiple pieces and understand that is that this small piece of information is also in line with the business need. So we have to analyze it, whether it is all this decomposition will comes into picture. If at all, if you know a use case spec, is the best way of analyzing the requirement. And at the same time, you start mapping all the components of a use case spec to the business need, so that you will be understanding it. And in short, if you want to understand it, like what should remain in the present business requirements, and what is missing for it, and what we should remove it of, all this we will be understanding it here. Okay, and then after analyzing the requirements, we have to represent requirements and attributes. That means explicitly represent and articulate the requirements, must show the characteristics of the requirements, must show the design qualities. That means each requirement, we need to, what is the requirement, like what are the attributes. Attributes means like what is the source of information, data on which it is given, what is the category of it, what is the priority of it, where we will be using it. So those informations would be given it. And not only that, this requirements will have like we have the SMART as a SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So that is also will be that is the qualities we have to understand it, right? And designs may differ based on stakeholders. Okay, typically to have multiple points of views, hence multiple requirements expressed as multiple views. BS must maintain the integrity and meaning of all the requirements across all the stakeholders. Now, the other day I've been talking about it. I've been saying that in one of my projects, I came across one small ambiguity where one location people say that for a single branch, few people are referring it as office, few people are referring it as location, other people are referring it as branch. Likewise, they have multiple, the same entity has multiple names given to it from different stakeholders. So You can't since it has multiple names, you can't define multiple what tables for it and make it different. So that's where the problem comes. So we have to maintain that integrity. We have to understand that branch is the branch, office, location, okay, all these are one and the same. All these are one and the same. We should understand it and we have to take it forward. Got it? And then okay, so we have here like four elements in specify and model requirements. What are these four elements? Number one, you're going to model the requirements. Number two, you have to analyze the requirements. Number three, we have to represent the requirements and their attributes. Okay, and then we have this fourth one we have to understand is okay, implement the appropriate levels of abstraction. We have to understand it. Now implement the appropriate levels of abstraction means here we have to understand like what stakeholders need, what level of information. You have to know it beforehand, and based on that you have to prepare your information levels. So that now let me say for stakeholder lower end stakeholder, a data entry operator is there. This guy just enters the application forms. That guy need not know about at a high level what a strategy they are maintaining it and what is the overall income the company is going to get. And that is at a, they don't need that information there at that level. They just need to know what that information is like. If they are in the data entry, what actually required for them in the data entry level, only that they will be giving it. Let me say a team lead is there, then at that level we have to give it. Now let me say a mid-level manager is there, he's going to take some decisions based on some criteria. Then we have to give that information from which he can take decisions. Like that we have to understand the stakeholders and what they exactly need, and from there all the information what is required and what are the requirements they should be informed, or we should get from them. We should get the clear cut picture, and only that we have to extract it. Okay, so that is very, very important for us to understand it. And here our RICA matrix comes into picture. Okay, like responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, like that. And also we will be understanding at what levels of information we are going to provide it here. So this is what we have in specify and model the requirements. We have to understand this. Okay, and then we have seen the guidelines and tools, and after that we have the techniques like acceptance and evaluation criteria. Now these techniques we will slowly understand where to apply these techniques here. And after that we have this, let us look into the what is the output this is going to create. Okay, now the output of the specified model requirements is requirements specified and modeled. That means here we are going to get the requirements and design specifications. That means all that we will draw the diagrams here. The output of it is all the pictorial representations of the requirements. Any gaps are there, we are going to identify it, and we have to get that information and properly documented it, right? So it's like when you see it, you will understand it. Okay, so they can have a visual impact. Visually they can understand. Okay, fine, this is what we are going to get. Okay, that is what we will be understanding here. Okay, the next one is verifying the requirements. In verifying the requirements, we have to confirm the requirements and design meet the quality criteria. Okay, for that we have to ensure that correct definition of the requirements and designs, that we should be very clear about it. And we have to checkpoint for a BA and stakeholders before the validation. Before we go for the validation process, here we do that verification part. Okay, and provides basis for the future work and validates fitness for use, and it validates use of formal and informal notations. Here verify requirements for the concerning stakeholder, what are information they are given, whether we have addressed it or not, and whether these are in line with the company's objectives, goals, or not. That is what we are going to see here. Okay, and here if you see verify requirements, it takes that requirements specified and modeled, the previous task inputs they're going to take, outputs they're going to take as input here, and we will take requirements lifecycle management tools as the guidelines, and the output is requirements verified, and the output is requirements verified. All right, and then what we will be doing, the requirements specified means it should be well documented, well written, and matrices and models correctly expressed. That is what I told you, right? And then we have this elements here. So in this verify requirements, we have three elements here. All right, we have three elements here. The first one is characteristics of requirements and design quality. So that we have to look into, and verification activities we have to understand, and the checklists. Okay. Now coming to this characteristics of characteristics of requirements and design quality. Number one, it should be atomic. Atomic means you take any requirement or a design, it should be self-contained. It should get that information and capability of being independently understood. So that is what atomic means. Atomic means for that small piece of information, you could get the complete information. That is what it is. And it should contain all the information which is required for you to understand it. So that is atomic. And the second one is complete. Complete means it is sufficient to guide the further work, appropriate level of detail to continue the work, and may differ based on the perspective or methodology point in a life cycle. That means here, this particular completeness means for that particular requirement, it should be like complete in nature by itself. Okay. And consistent means it should be aligned with the identified needs of the stakeholders and does not conflict with other requirements. Okay. And then consensus. Consensus means it's like no extra or unnecessary details. It should be consensus. Like it should be like apt. What is required only you should model it, and what is not required you don't model it. That is not at all required here. And feasible. Feasible means your requirements or the designs, okay, are reasonable and possible when it should happen within the risk tolerance. It should happen like that, and scheduled and budget. It should go ahead with that, and ability to investigate further. From there, you should have leads to go beyond it. So we have to look into that feasible part of it. And unambiguous. Unambiguous means it should be clearly. I told you it is specific. It should be specific. So it shouldn't have 2-3 other meanings for it. It should clearly have a single meaning to it. And testable. Okay. So before we could accept any requirement, we should ensure that it is testable. Okay. If you come up with a requirement is not testable, then it goes for a toss. Okay. So everywhere we should understand that a requirement, before you accept a requirement for development, you should understand it should be testable. I can give you one example on the testability part of it. Suppose if a requirement came in such a way that I want a beautiful website. Now, beautiful means, suppose what is beautiful to you may not be beautiful to the stakeholder. Then the problem comes. So you should start understanding what is beautiful. You should start asking questions. Beautiful means what color combinations you are looking at, what pixel resolutions you want, and what are the themes you are interested in. Like that, you should start asking questions so that you can establish a unit of measure. If you can measure something, then you can manage it. If you can manage it, then you can deliver it, and you can test it. Manage means if at all, if a unit of measure is there, testing becomes possible. So for us to make any requirement testable, first of all, we have to establish a unit of measure there. So understand what is the unit of measure you are going to establish for that particular requirement and design. Okay. And then we have to make sure that it has some priority, and when you write a requirement, it should be like understandable. Okay. It should be understandable. Next is verification activities, how you're going to verify it. Okay. So once you got the requirements, next is you have to verify it. So these verification often performed iteratively. Okay. And first of all, we have to check for compliances with organizational performance standards, or whether we are under those what we say guidelines or not. We have to understand it. And are we using the correct use of the modeling notation templates or forms? That as well we have to check. And checking for completeness with each model, like each model is able to give you that complete information or not. And comparing models against each other relevant models, that is no conflict there. And like any missing items are there, and likewise we have to do it. Okay. And whatever the terminologies we are using, that should be understandable and should be conflict and it should be consistent. And if at all, if you can add examples for so that the people can understand it, you can add examples here. So verification activities is like something like we have to, once it is modeled, we have to understand whether these requirements the other stakeholders can understand it or not, and whether they are under the compliances, whether they are you following the standards and the best practices. We are going to verify it here. Okay. And then we have a checklist. Like checklist is for quality control. Generally we use this checklist, and we have the set of like, oh, whether did you do it, did you do that, like that. We will write all these things and ensure that the checklist is provided, so that whatever we are going to do it, they pass through all the standard routines so that important routines may not be missed. Okay, important routines may not be missed, so that it is good that we prepare a checklist of how to verify the requirements. So once these checklists are done, then we will see, okay, first of all, this is standards are met. Next, it is given from the stakeholder perspective. Next, it is under the like compliances, it is not deviating any compliance. Next, it is under the organization's rules and regulations. Next, it is going to achieve the business goals or business objectives, or it is in line with the business need that we have to do ahead in that word. So if you have this verify requirements means, first of all, we have to define the characteristics of the requirements and design quality, and then we have to go with the verification activities, and finally we have to see the checklist here. Okay, and once you see this outputs, okay, the outputs of these requirements, a verified set of requirements, and quality sufficient to move to the next step, and verified sets of designs and quality sufficient to move to the next step. Verification. Now I told you requirements means we have two parts, one is requirements and the other one is the design. So both we will be understanding it here. Okay, and then it is validate the requirements. Validate the requirements means we should ensure that the requirements and design are aligned to the business requirements, to the main requirements, and these requirements and design satisfy the requirements. That means whatever requirements is, it's the need. It is the need what they actually give us that. Okay, and here validating is an ongoing process. We have to see that stakeholder alignment with the business requirements, and solution and transition designs align to the business requirements, and we have to see that the designs satisfy the requirements. That means there's a link between the requirements and the design, and we need to understand what desired future state looks like, and for the stakeholders how they look at it, and we have to understand the overall goal is to achieve the stakeholders desired future state, and the conflict it needs to be exposed. You should identify it, and we should what we say, find a solution for it. We should take inputs from the concerning stakeholders and we should find a solution for it. That is what we are going to do in the validate requirements. Now validate requirements, it will take input requirements specified a model from the first task. The output is taken as input here for the validate requirements, and here the guidelines, if you see that business objectives, feature state description, potential value, solution scope is taken as the guidelines, and the output would be requirements validated, and the output would be requirements validated, right? Next, here if you see these elements here for the validation, we have to identify the assumptions. The first one is you have to identify the assumptions. The second one, we are going to define measurable evaluation criteria. You have to define measurable evaluation criteria. And the third one is evaluate alignment with the solution scope. We have to evaluate alignment with the solution scope. So these three elements are there in the validating the requirements. For validating the requirements, here we have the, first of all, you have to identify the assumptions. So now understand that new requirements, they do not have precedence. That means no previous experiences will be there. For the first time it is being proposed, nobody knows anything about it. In such case, you should be very cautious about understanding such requirements. Okay, and here we need to understand that the need to list and validate assumptions made for the stakeholder assumptions and customer responses. That means here we need to prepare that assumptions list and get it verified by these people. Then only how much, till what extent we are correct, till what extent we are wrong, we'll understand it. Okay, and then sometimes it is very difficult to identify the root cause analysis to root cause of particular thing, like why it is happening there. It becomes, in such cases, we have to list cause assumptions even if there is no cause. And the second one is we list the variables that may cause these assumptions. Like that, we will start looking into things. If directly root cause may not be possible, then we'll start looking into the other options of getting and understanding the problem area. Okay, and we have to even understand the risks associated with these assumptions. What are assumptions you're going to make? What are the risks associated with it? You need to understand about it. Okay, and then we have to define. Okay, we have to define a measurable and evaluation criteria. Okay, we have to define measurable evaluation criteria. For that, as I've been telling you, any requirement is coming up, we have to come up with a measure to understand it and measure it. So those we have to define it. Sometimes the client himself will give us that, or sometimes we have to define by our own ways. Now I'll tell you, simplest way is that suppose if you're a sales guy, we know we do have a target, like we have to do so much of sale in it, or sometimes we have to get so many customers, or if you are into telecalling, daily you have to handle 100 calls, like that. There will be some measure, they will be like they will be establishing it, and they evaluate based on that. So we have to understand those measures and metrics. What are the measures and metrics we can have it, and we have to understand the measures for the basic state, for the current state, what are the baseline metrics we are using it, and then we have to understand the target metrics based on the future state description. Future statement, what are the target metrics we are going to use as well, both we have to understand it. And the target metrics on the future state, it is all dependent on the business objectives. And we will also look into the other measurement of success, like any other standard practices are available that we can also have it here. Okay, and then we have this we have to evaluate the alignment with the solution scope. That means any requirement has come up with, we have to ensure that the requirement may provide benefit to the stakeholder, but may not provide overall alignment to the desired future state. In that case, we can't go ahead with it. Okay, need to view benefit alignment to the desired state, how it is, like considering or eliminating, modifying those who do not align. That means suppose if you're working on one requirement and that requirement has nothing, it is not giving value to the business goals or the business need, then there's no point of working on it. We can eliminate it, or sometimes we can modify it as well. Okay, so such requirements we'll be considering it here. Okay, and considering altering the future state, altering the desired future state as well, like we have to understand to reach that particular future state what is actually required. From there we will be taking it forward. Okay, now we have to understand that if you are unable to understand this particular design, if it is not enabled, you're unable to validate it, then something is missing here. It can be a benefit which is missed out, or some requirements are not in line with it, or it has been miscommunicated. Okay, and sometimes you have to understand some designs may not need to change at all. As it is, it can cater to that future state as well. So you have to understand the validation part of it here. Okay, so these are the three elements which we have in validate requirements. One is we are going to identify the assumptions. The second one is we define measurable evaluation criteria, and the third one is we will evaluate alignment with the solution scope. These three are the elements which we are going to do it of. And then if you see this okay, the output of it, okay, validated, it is the requirements validated. Okay, it is the requirements validated, and the output, if you see that that means these are like they, whatever validated requirements are there, if you work on it, you will get a direct benefit to the stakeholders and a direct benefit to the organizations. Okay, they will get a direct benefit to the stakeholders and they will direct benefit to the organization. You will get it with the validated requirements, you will get this benefit. All right, and the next one is define requirements architecture. Define requirements architecture. Now here requirements collectively support each other, that the relationship between these requirements we should understand, and requirements fully achieve the business objectives, that as well we have to know about it. Right, and here if you see represents the structure of all the requirements of a change. That means what all requirements combined together, it forms an architecture. If any one of them is being impacted, what is the impact on the other requirements, that we have to understand, and fits the individual models and specifications together form a whole. That means individually that is a piece of functionality, but combined together it gives you a complete a particular task can be performed as a whole. It can happen, and it used to understand which models are appropriate for the domain, organize requirements into structured relevant to stakeholders, illustrate how requirements interact and relate, allow for the trade-off decisions. That means if you know this requirements architecture, based on it we can take some decisions on it. Right, now define a requirements architecture. We have taken three inputs here: requirements, the second one is information management approach, and the third one is solution scope. And the guidelines which we use here is requirements architecture software, the legal and regulatory information, methodologies and frameworks we will be using it, and the output we are going to get is a requirements architecture. Fine. And if you look into the tasks, okay, we have here 5 tasks here. We have 5 tasks. Number one is requirements of viewpoints and views. The second one is a template architectures. Third one is completeness. Fourth one is relate and verify requirements relationships. And the fifth one is requirements analysis information architecture. So we have these 5 elements in defined requirements architecture, right? The first one is requirements viewpoints and views. Right here, we need to understand that these are the set of conventions define how requirements are presented and related. That means how these are linked with each other. We need to understand it and what is the relationship between them. And we provide templates for different stakeholder groups. Different stakeholders need to know different information. For that, we use different templates for them. And we include standards and guidelines, okay, for what models we have to use here, attributes what we have to use, and model notations, and what are the analytical approaches we're going to adopt to here. Okay, that is what we'll be seeing. And no single viewpoint can represent all viewpoints. That means we can go with multiple viewpoints rather than a single viewpoint. We can go with multiple viewpoints here. Okay, and a collection of viewpoints makes an architecture. Collection of these viewpoints makes an architecture. Okay, and here generally we have a template architectures here. Now it's a framework, is a collection of viewpoints, like it is standard across. Sometimes it can be standard across an industry, an organization, or a sector, like that. Let me say HR process is that HR process may be like it is uniform across all the HRs, like that, HR verticals. And let me say e-commerce is there. E-commerce practice is the same in all the e-commerce industries. The best practices would be the same. Okay, like that. They take the same precautions all over the verticals, like that. And we have to understand this is like domain specific. Generally, template architectures will have the domain specific informations, and it will have provide a more complete picture about the let me say e-commerce is there. E-commerce may you will have like information about the vendors, their products, the display of their products, and the customer who buys it, and there will be the logistics involved based on the how the what we say the item is purchased and how the item is been delivered to the customer. So all this, the same architecture will be there. A similar architecture will be there for all the e-commerce websites. It will not be different for different websites. So it will be the same for all the e-commerce. Let me say hospital management system is there. For any hospital you take, the basic architecture will be the same, but internally the functionalities may vary depending on the process, but the architecture remains the same. If you take a hospital, patients will be there, doctors will be there, treatment will happen. Okay, now you can't escape from it. You can't tell in a hospital we don't treat patients. That is the basic structure would be the same. That is what we are saying, that template architectures would be there, right? And then we will be looking completeness. We have to look for the completeness. Any architecture you take, it should be look for the completeness. That means sometimes you may not be aware of it, but a domain expert will give you the completeness definition of over there, so that if you do perform any action, it can be complete in nature and all the concerning activities are being supported here. Okay, and then we have to relate and verify the requirements relationships. Okay, here what we try to do is that we need to understand how each requirement is related with each other, and what is the impact of if one requirement is going to be like changed, what is the impact on the other requirements. We have to understand it. Okay, and the quality criteria, if you see that a requirement should be defined, that means a relationship does exist and it should be expressed, and it is necessary to understand the requirements holistically, and correct, the requirement should be correct, and the relationship described does exist, and unambiguous, do not link elements with more than one or conflicting manner, and consistent, described in the same manner in the same set of standards descriptions as per the viewpoints. That means requirements should have this. Okay, and then it is business analysis information architecture. That means what all information we actually generate, that should be in line with okay, that information should be in line with the actual architecture as well. That means what sort of how you are going to define the relationship between requirements, designs, types of models, illustration results, and how you are going to verify the relationships are complete. All this information you should give it beforehand. That is your business analysis information architecture, like what documents you're going to prepare, how these documents are used, where they are used, who are going to use it, that we are going to define here. Okay, and coming to this like the output of it. Okay, The output of the requirements architecture would be the completed requirements and the completed interrelationship among them and the contextual information as required. Okay, so that once we actually work on a case study, you will get the meaning of it. What is that? Okay, and the next one is we are going to define design options, like how many approaches are there for us to actually get to the solution that is given here. And it has four elements here. If you can understand, we have four elements here. The first one is define solution approaches. Okay, now either you can purchase it, or you can create it, or you can go with a hybrid mode. Suppose for us to have a solution, you can create on your own right from the scratch. You can develop it and you can create on your own, or you can even purchase it which has already been developed, or you can go for hybrid mode where you can purchase it and then add your own. Like that we can go with an hybrid model as well. Okay, so it's like a solution or approaches. If you are going to create, you can go with assembled, constructed, developed, like that. And if you are going to purchase from the selected from the offerings, then to fulfill the requirements, that means from there you are going combination of both, means it includes both creation and purchase, both we will be making it up. Okay, and then we will say identify the improvement opportunities. Then we'll identify the improvement opportunities. Improvement opportunities means like the business may occur, we have to see where we can increase the efficiencies, automate or simplify in the complete process, re-engineering or sharing the processes, changing the responsibilities and outsourcing it. Okay, so where we can actually improve on this, we will be looking into it. And then we have to improve access to the information, like which stakeholder can access what information, and for a process what information should be like visible to the concerning stakeholders and the process members, that we should be clarifying it. And we have to identify like any out of this particular application, anything extra we can give back to the client, any extra features are given back to the client, we should also identify it. Okay, and then we have this requirements allocation. Requirements allocation means like so let me say you have some 500 requirements with you. This particular solution, how many requirements it is going to actually address? 500 may, is it going to address 400 requirements? Then what about the remaining 100? So 400 requirements are there important? Like that we have to understand the requirements allocation. Okay, and we have to actually focus on maximizing the value, and maybe allocated between organization units, job functions, solution components, or release of the solutions, that we will be looking into it. And then we have this when the solution approach is going to begin, at that time we will come up with the requirements allocation. Out of my 500 requirements, how many this particular solution is going to address, that I'm going to understand it. Okay, and it's like it is a continuous we will be requirements allocation is that whenever a new change comes as well, the same thing will be applied in the allocation part of it. Okay, and then if you see here, okay, then we have to describe the design options. We have to describe the design options, right? Design options means it's like what are the various options we have for considering it. Okay, whether this design option is valid or not, that we have to understand it. And here we will be going up with the, we have to understand like many design components are there, like the business policies and rules have been added here, business process to be performed and managed, and the people who operate and maintain the solution, operational benefits, business decisions. Okay, and here we have to understand the organization structure, including the interactions between the organization, customers, and suppliers. Okay, all this we have to consider it, and various design options we can consider using it. Okay, got it clear on this? And if you look into the output of it, okay, design options would be like we'll be identifying various ways of satisfying, that means multiple options which we have for us to as a part of the solution, which we can have, we will be rating it. And it can be like then we will understand the solution approach, potential improvement of opportunities and components, we will be having it. Now let me say I want an accounting software. In such case whether I'll build it on my own, or I will be like buying already existing software in the market like Tally. Like that I have an option here. I have, let me say I have two options here. So there will be two design options here. Then using the next one, analyze potential value and recommend a solution. Then I'll find a solution out of this existing design options, which one I have to take, which one I have to consider, I will be understanding from here. Okay, now here estimate the potential value of each design option, and we have to establish which potential value is most appropriate here, and from there we'll select it. Okay, and it describes how to estimate and model potential value delivered by the set of requirements, design and design options, and this process is iterative, right? And we have this, let us go with the how it is going to happen. So here we have to, value can be described in terms of finance and reputation, impact on the marketplace, all this will be considering it. Okay, and next let us see what inputs it is going to take. Potential value, design options it is going to take, and the guidelines are business objectives, current state description, future state description, risk analysis results, and solution scape. Within this guidelines we will come up with a solution recommendation. Okay, and then if you see here, first of all we have to identify the expected benefits. So these benefits we have, what are the benefits you are going to get it, and this value can include like benefits, reduced risk, compliance with the business policies and regulations, and improved user experience, other positive outcomes. We have to understand where the value is going to be there, and we can calculate it at a single requirement, or grouping the requirements we can do it. Okay, next we have to see the expected cost. If you want to take it, what is the cost of selecting a particular what we say a design approach, we will be understanding it here. Here we will be calculating the cost. Okay, the cost to acquire the solution, negative effects on the stakeholders, cost to maintain over the time, all this will be considering it. And next is cost may include timeline, effort, purchase or implementation costs. Okay, operational cost, maintenance cost, physical resources, information costs, human resources, all this they will be considering it in the expected costs, right? And then we have this okay, we will be determining the value there. Okay, so value means so what value we are going to, now we have seen the benefits there, and then we have to determine the value. Value means from the cost benefit analysis, we have to go with the cost benefit analysis. We see what is the benefits we are going to get to the stakeholders, what is the cost incurred to the stakeholders, that is we have to understand. And we have to see which one is more appropriate in this particular context, which one is giving more value for the benefit given, that we have to understand it here and come up with a solution, right? And finally we have to assess design options and recommend the solution. So we will understand this cost benefit analysis. We will do it in the previous step, and here we are going to choose one of the solutions to be the best solution here, right? Let me give you let me say the accounting software example. Let me say if you develop an accounting software on your own, let me say your budget is somewhere around 30 lakhs per annum. It is 30 lakhs, and let me say it will take like at least 6 months for you to develop it. And when you already developed software is available, product is available, tally you will get it for a lakh. Tally you will get it for a lakh, and within 1 week time it is up and running as per your requirement. So it's like now you have to decide between whether to invest 30 lakhs and build a new software for yourself, or you will just invest 1 lakh and you will build your own software, or you will take a product which is existing in the market. You can take a decision based on it, and what are the benefits like. Now you have to look into the benefits of each of these areas. Now if you take a generic product available in the market, few of your specialized features may not be addressed here. Like let me say it will be like 80% matching of your benefits, and 20% there will be no match. So you have to understand where the 20% goes. Now whereas if you go with your own application development, you can go with like a 95% more mapping can be done. So here that a trade-off between 15%, whether we can go with a software product or we are going to develop our own application, you have to take a decision on it. So that we will be here, we will analyze the potential value and we recommend a solution based on all these parameters here. Fine, got it. So the outcome of it is that a recommended solution, you can see here, like the outcome would be the recommended solution. Okay. And for that, what is the what is the value it is going to give you, that will be given here, right? You got it here. Now if you understand this knowledge area, requirements analysis and design definition, okay, here we have 6 tasks associated with it. The first one is specify and model the requirements, second one is verify the requirements, third one is validate the requirements, fourth one is define requirements architecture. Fifth one is define design options. Sixth one is analyze potential value and you recommend the solutions, right? And if you look into the first one, specified model requirements, here we have four tasks. That is model requirements, analyze requirements, represent the requirements and their attributes, implement appropriate levels of abstraction. And when you look into the verify requirements, we have three tasks here, like characteristics of requirement and design quality, and verifying verification activities and checklist. And coming to validate the requirements, we have three tasks here. One is identify assumptions. The second one is define measurable evaluation criteria. And the third one is evaluate assignment with the solution scope. Okay, alignment with the solution scope, you will be doing it. And then you'll be having a define requirements architecture. Here we will be understanding the requirements, viewpoints, and the views, the template architectures, and the completeness, and relate and verify requirements relationships, and then business analysis information architecture. You will be going through it. And then the fifth task is define design options. There we will be defining the solution approaches, identify improvement opportunities, requirements allocation, describe design options. And then we analyze potential value and recommend solutions. Here we have four elements here. One is expected benefits, expected cost, determine the value, and we assess the design options and we recommend the solution. This is what we are to do with this okay, requirements analysis and design definition. Fine, got it? Clear on this? Okay. So I want you to go through this once, understand till what extent we are covered, and based on it,